Hello, friends. We're back on YouTube. Let's see if y'all can hear me. Hello, hello, hello. I'm here with a special guest, Mr. William. Say it, Mr. William
Cusick.
Cusick. I
Like
didn't want to say
music.
it wrong
Like
again.
you've never said it wrong. You always say it right.
Okay. All right, cool. Is my mic on? Just making sure everything's kosher here. I think we're good to go. I think the chat will let us know if nothing's working, but I think we work. All right, everybody, this is my friend Bill. I want him to introduce himself. He's a very smart fellow that I talk to a lot. And yeah, I brought him on tonight to sort of elevate what we normally do because Bill's a filmmaker and a professor of filmmaking and all kinds of cool stuff, which I'll let him tell you about. But essentially, we want to talk tonight about like building a narrative, building a story, and then like, actually executing it as opposed to just throwing spaghetti at the wall and, slapping it all together. So yeah, welcome Bill. And please tell the people who you is.
Yeah, awesome. Dude, thanks for having me. Long time listener, first time caller kind of situation here. Um I we met what 2 years ago, give or take, when I was working at Stability AI. I was on the first I was on the marketing team and the product team, and then I moved into the applied team. And we met because of your incredible work on animation with you know uh I want to say disco diffusion, but it was really like when we got into to using deforum, like you were just way ahead of everybody. And I really like loved like getting you involved, and you were involved in all the early testing of the tools we were working on. Before I spent 1 year with Stability. I took a leave of absence from teaching. I teach at the New School in New York. Like you said, I teach film. I also teach design courses. I in When I was younger, I designed theater productions like Broadway shows, off Broadway shows, opera, dance, stuff like that, musicals. So I did a lot of like live performance design. And did a lot of commercial work shooting videos and making films. So I've made two feature films. I've made a whole number of short films, and then I've produced like over 100 short films now with this workshop I run. I ran before the pandemic this short film workshop at the New School. Um, yeah, and so I'm obsessed with AI. Like I've been obsessed with it for a few years, and I'm an optimist. Like we talk all the time, and I really feel like there's something here for for artists, but I feel like there's something here for everybody in terms of tools, that can facilitate uh methodologies that are you know well established methodologies, uh such as concept development, script writing, storyboards, shot planning. I don't look at AI and think of it as like a one button click solution. Like my thinking is not like, I type a sentence and it's like, here's the movie I want, and it would make it for me. Like not at all. Like I'm much more of the mindset that, like, we still have to do all the creative work that is involved in making something that's coherent. Like there's plenty of videos on YouTube, like, well, we'll get into it. So yeah, anyway, my intro, I think that's enough of an intro. I don't know. What do you think?
No, that's great. Yeah. And yeah, man, please keep going. Go for it. Talk about
Okay,
YouTube.
cool. Well, okay, so I spent a year at Stability. I worked on I helped release Stable Diffusion 1.4, 1.5. Well, 1.5 was kind of released by Runway, but then we did 2.0, 2.1, and then I moved into the research team and I helped develop SDXL, and worked on stable animation for like the entire time I was there. I helped create Dream Studio, like the original version of Dream Studio was something that I did with the CTO Tom Mason and a bunch of incredible, brilliant engineers. Um, and yeah, and so I spent a year there, and then I took a year off. I went back to teaching for the past year, and I have just watched everything happening for the last year. Like I've watched probably, tens of, well, I don't know if I'd say 10, maybe 10,000. Honestly, if I count all the videos of yours I've watched like 10,000 AI videos. Like it is just my obsession. And I think that we're finally getting somewhere, in the sense that, like, Runway Gen 3 has come out, Luma has come out with this incredible set of tools. I think, in my mind, when Flux 1 dropped last week, I feel like it was that lean forward moment that I've sort of
Yeah.
been waiting for. And so, and you and I have been talking for the past year while I've just been thinking about, like, well, how do I make a film with AI that, you know, is about these tools in a structural way that can facilitate something that otherwise I would struggle at doing. And one of the things that I talked about a lot with some friends of mine at Stability, Kali Yuga was, somebody I worked with for a year, the artist Kali Yuga AI.
Hmm.
And we talked a lot about, like, the sort of like therapy purposes, like therapy uses of AI, like therapeutic, in the sense of like image generation is really something that's like, it's between you and yourself. I think it's really easy to get wrapped up in the idea of like making images and putting them online, and I'm a digital artist now. But really what's happening, I think, is this sort of conversation with yourself where you're interacting with your own psyche, and you're getting to sort of learn how to talk to a computer to talk to yourself. And then,
Yeah.
if you post your images online, like whatever. Um, and so when I think about like chatbots too as creative tools, I think of their value in terms of like breaking through that initial step of like, you know, of the sort of like perfectionist curse of like, you have an idea and you want to make something. Um, and it's just getting that first step going of like just making the vomit draft, the bad first idea.
Yep.
And that's what chatbots are great at.
Failing
They are
fast.
great. They're super fast, and it's like you get to the fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth idea so quickly. And it's something I've said to my students for years, where it's like, if your first idea makes it on stage or on screen, like you probably didn't really work on like your story. It's like
Yeah.
I've seen students who like they revise their work over and over and over, and those films come out brilliant. They win festivals, they turn into filmmakers. And the students who kind of like they don't break through that fear, and they only get one idea out, I've and so I think that there's value in this as a creative sort of like jetpack. um so
Absolutely.
yeah, so
Well, I
yeah,
talk
so
about
the
that a
thing I've
lot
been
here is
thinking.
that failing fast
Yeah,
mentality where, like, if you can get to the answer faster, you're doing well. Like, sometimes in Blender, you can take 8 hours to find out you're doing it wrong. And with AI, sometimes you can get there in 20 minutes and go, oh, this sucks. Next. And then, like, start iterating,
totally,
faster than you would have before.
totally, yeah, getting to the sort of like, well, because there's sort of like, in my experience professionally too, it's sort of like there's almost like there's two kinds of artists. There's like, and this is a vast overgeneralization, but like you could think of it as sort of like two ways of approaching work. There's the artists who come in with they know every detail, they have a vision in their mind of everything they want to have happen. And then there's the other type of artist who they know it when they see it. And so they need to see options. They need to see options. I've worked with directors like this.
Hmm.
I
Do it
remember
five
working
ways,
with
I'll pick
Joanna
one.
Akalitis.
Yeah, do it five
Yeah,
ways, I'll
yeah,
pick one.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like I remember seeing that with some great directors, and then I've worked in the other way where there's directors who, they have a really clear vision of everything they want, but then they're still open to collaboration. Like there's always that space for collaboration. And I think that, like, you know, the 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 place that we've been at with like AI video is very much like, you can make trailers, right? You can make like film trailers. You can make sort of animatics and storyboards.
Things that resemble
Um,
film. Like,
exactly.
yeah, yeah.
Or
Or
you can make video art.
yeah.
Like I think that the stuff you do is clearly it's video art with a capital A. Like, and there's a number of you guys who are doing work that I admire, really, like I admire so much. And that's what I've been thinking about the sort of like convergence of form and content. You know, because what you have is the form is AI generated images and motion, and so the content that the video artists execute in their work, their really successful work, is often taking advantage of the form, you know, like the sort of hallucinations, the kind of like grotesque manifestations that happen. And so, you know, like we've talked about your work, we've talked about, like, you know, I love Frank Manzano's work, you know, I love Spencer's work. There's sort of this thing that
Bowie,
happens
Nathan Bowie.
where yeah, Nathan is
Someone
amazing.
someone in
I've
the
been
chat
following.
just said it's really impossible to convey human emotions at this point with the current AI tools. I implore you to go check out Nathan Bowie's work.
His work's
Some of his
amazing. Yeah,
stuff will
I
make
think.
you cry. So I don't know, man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
No, no, totally. He's awesome. Yeah, and so the thing I guess we're getting at, though, like the point we're getting to, and I think that whoever said that about like conveying human emotions, I think you're totally right. I think that's
Yeah.
exactly what I'm getting at. I
Most of the
think that
stuff you
what we
see
need,
is that, yeah, empty plastic.
right? What I think we need to do as like artists, as filmmakers, as storytellers, if we want to make sort of coherent narrative stories with these tools, I really think that right now we have to lean into the sort of non-realistic approach. You know, we need to think about having content that matches the form. So I think now, so there's these theories on like on fantasy literature. Like when I was in graduate school, I was obsessed with like writing everything I could about fantasy stories and fantasy films, because it's still like a relatively new area of study, right? And there's this theory about like understanding and defining the genre of fantasy, right? Fantasy and sci-fi. And the theory puts forward the idea that there's a hesitation, that the viewer hesitates when they're watching or reading fantasy or sci-fi, because that hesitation is the reader thinking like, is this possible? Like, is this real? Could this be real? Is it you know, like, and so we have a similar hesitation with you know, AI generated videos, in the sense that pretty much everything we see now on Twitter or like on Instagram or on TikTok or whatever, there's always that moment of like, is this AI? And what happens is a debate, I think, for me, in my own experience. Like, I watch these videos and I go, is that AI? And like, and if it doesn't fool me, I immediately don't give a shit. Like, I immediately kind of go, oh yeah, it's another trailer. It's another slow zoom on somebody doing nothing. It's another, like, you know, kind of like soulless, pointless, you know, more than anything, it's just pointless.
It can become that thing of like media literacy when you know you're being advertised at and your brain just shuts off the input part of your brain. Like
Totally.
it becomes that sort of like, oh, I recognize this as not entertainment or not information. This is something, it's trying to sell something to me, or it's not the same. It's like when you hear like lo-fi music in the background, you never really listen to it. It's just there.
Well, because I think what's happening is that there's an exchange between the content and the viewer, and it's super fast. It happens super quickly, where you're trying to convince the viewer that what they're seeing is real, and you're never gonna succeed. Like, not right now, these tools will never succeed at convincing someone it's real. You know, I think that you'll maybe trick someone with something silly, and those are some of the most effective sort of like, but I wouldn't call them narrative. You know, it's like they're effective in that they're surprising, but there's still that sort of hesitation of reality. So when you think about animation, right, you think about claymation, or like, you know, anime, or you think about like, you know, really any. I was watching like there's a new Batman animation series, right, by the guy who
Oh
made the
yeah,
Batman,
looks good.
Matt Reeves. It's so good. And I was watching it thinking like, could you do this with AI tools? I mean, and I think the answer is a resounding no, but what's valuable is thinking about the storytelling approach. And I think what I've come to is like, and I have a thesis that I want to present, what we're going to sort of do them, you know, the sort of mess around and find out. I'm trying to keep this PG. I'm trying not to curse too much. But we can, you know, my thesis that I want to try to present and work on tonight is this idea that if you're going to use AI tools to make a narrative, the content has to supersede the form. Like, the content has to be more interesting than the question of, is this or is this not real? Is this AI or is this not AI?
Hmm.
And that's where the video artists go really far. There's never, you see Frank Manzano's work, I see your work, I see Bowie's work. Like within a second, within like 2 frames, you go, that's not real, and I love it. Like it
Yeah,
just
you
kind of
just blow
takes you
right
in,
past that into storytelling.
and you're with your, you're in the hands of a capable artist. And I think
Hmm.
with the narrative stuff, what we're not seeing are a lot of sort of trained narrative filmmakers and narrative storytellers saying, okay, like how can I use these tools to make something narrative? And I think the first step is you have to go away from the literal. Like this was something I learned, like, working on Broadway shows and designing video projections, is like the literal is not your friend. It's like if you want to have a scene in a house and you project a wallpaper behind the actors, it's just stupid. Like people do it, you can do it, but it's stupid. And it doesn't really elevate, doesn't make the audience use their imagination. So I think we're in this sort of liminal space between traditional film, which is only limited by the filmmaker's imagination, and theater that's really only limited by the audience's imagination. We're in this sort of middle ground where like animation kind of asks the audience to participate in the construction of the experience, because there's a lot of things that are not real in an animated film or a sort of animated short. So my thesis is that you need to work in a non-realistic you need to work in non-realistic form with content that is interesting, inherently interesting, and it's not waiting to get good. Because I see so many of these short little like sizzle reels of AI video, and I always feel the conversation I'm having in my head is I can hear the filmmaker saying, "Oh, just wait for it, just wait for it, just wait for it." And it's like, no, I'm not going to wait for it. I'm
Yeah,
doom scrolling. Let me
I
doom
know.
scroll. So so
Better catch me. You better
that's
catch me
the
quick.
yeah. So that's like that's sort of my relatively inchoate, you know, thesis that I've been thinking about for a few weeks now, and
Cool.
this idea that like maybe we could make a sort of like batshit Sherlock Holmes short film, and do something that's, because Sherlock Holmes is in the public domain. He's a highly recognizable character, and it's something that, as a concept, it's trained into all the different foundation models, both for images and for language. And so what I did was, binge watched Sherlock. I've seen it before, like twice. This is like my third time through Sherlock with Benedict Cumberbatch. And man, he is so young in that show. I forgot that like that was his real breakthrough, was like doing Sherlock.
Right.
And it's kind of funny because he plays Sherlock like this like totally autistic jerk, and it's amazing. Like I forgot, like he's so unlikable. Um
Mm.
uh, uh, but it's a great show. So I kind of like went back, revisited Sherlock. I loved it as a kid. He's sort of like iconic, and Watson, and like elementary, my dear Watson is a classic line. Um, and so I was like, maybe it could be fun to just try something. So I did the sort of steps, right? I went to ChatGPT, pitched ChatGPT an idea, and then did the back and forth to develop. It gave me like 10 concepts. I picked one, it gave it some notes, it gave me a draft. I gave it some notes, gave me a second draft. I asked it for a shot list. It gave me a shot list. I asked it to turn the shot list into a prompt list, and then it
Mm.
gave me all the prompts. And then I said, this is cool, but ChatGPT is not open source. So let's do, even though it's free, it's still not open source. Let's do it with Meta's 405B, a llama model that just came out.
Yeah.
And it's wicked. Like I gotta give Meta like some major props, because
Nice.
that model is outrageous. So I redid the whole thing. I did it again with llama, and was really pleased with, like, it got a good script. It's silly. And I changed the content so it wouldn't get you any kind of content strikes on YouTube. It's totally, so he gets, Sherlock gets poisoned, has a bunch of hallucinations, and solves a crime, just
Cool.
like the show. That's basically every episode of Sherlock. Like
Hmm.
Sherlock hallucinates a bunch and solves a crime. Like,
Yeah.
uh, and so where I got to, and I basically got to the point where I got the script, I went through, I asked it to rewrite a bunch of lines, and it was so sort of effective at like, it's like having a writer's room where it was like a couple of the lines are terrible, you know, and you'll see like there's some that were just cheesy. And then like I had only had enough time to kind of like ask it to rewrite a couple lines here and there, here and there. And then yeah, and then I turned on my camera and I recorded myself doing all of the lines of both parts. And again, it's like, you know, if I had two actors here, you know, I would have them do it. But this is just a prototype, you know. And did the Sherlock lines and the Watson lines, and I did them as every one as an individual take, just sitting at my computer in front of a green screen. Um, and the theory is that while we're on stream, right, I'm going to generate the storyboards or the frames while you start to test and animate some of the faces. Like, so I've already generated a couple of Sherlocks, you know, tonight
Mhm.
for us to kind of play around with, and then I've sent you all the videos. So
Yep.
basically, we'll work with LivePortrait, we'll work with Flux One. We'll work with, we've already worked with Meta's 405B, and I'm trying to do as much open source as possible because I do believe philosophically, like the only way these tools make sense is open source. Like
Yeah.
you know, it's you know, trust me, having worked at a company that like, you know, Stability was open source, like we were giving away models. Like I understand the need to like make money, and at the same time, it's like we're at the stage where like it's people are still like figuring out how to put lead into a piece of wood and shave it to like draw with on paper. You know,
Yeah.
it's like we're still making papyrus right now, and I don't think anyone benefits by keeping things secret. Like people keeping things secret just slows down the whole sort of development process for everyone, and it makes a lot of people really scared and fearful, and rightly so, you know, because it becomes this sort of like capitalist endeavor that you know, wants to crush all of us. But that aside, you know, we'll try to be optimistic tonight, and we'll just fuck around and find out.
Damn right.
um, so yeah, I don't know.
Awesome.
Is the chat going crazy telling me to shut up? Or I
No,
don't see the chat anywhere. So
no, they like you. They like you. You're good. We got Chris Hackett here. We got Scott Hawley here. We got Velvet Jones, Peter Marks. Got all kinds of people. Tim Truth, Shadow Wanderer, Hugh White memes, Sprinter options, and Brett Harding. Holy cow! Full house tonight. And they're just the
cool.
ones who are talking.
Excellent.
Scott says Bill's great.
Dr.
Hey,
Scott.
Dr. Scott. And he also says he's working on an AI viewer model that consumes content and watches ads just like a real human. Just kidding.
And I just saw Peter Mark's comment here. Yeah, the point about humans is you need real human acting to
Yeah.
be the basis of wherever this goes. And I totally agree with you. I think that you know, Purz and I have looked at, you know, a couple different tools where you can, you know, just type in text and have it animate with text, and it's not really like good at all. Like it's silly. But yeah, no, I mean, trust me, I teach actors and writers, directors. Like I don't think there's any substitute for human creativity whatsoever. But I think what we have here is like a, you know, it is like a series of new tools that no one understands yet, no matter what anybody says, you know, and we're all figuring it out together. So
Yeah, that's fun. All right, let's jump over to the other screen. Now, I've got your computer up, Bill, so you can just start talking about what you've been working on. Yeah, so
cool.
we're looking at your Comfy UI window right now.
Cool. Okay, so I talked through this before, so I'll pull this up. But this is basically the conversation I had with Meta's 405B tool. I didn't have time to download it and run it locally yet. It was just sort of a last minute, like, you know, hey, let's just do this open source. So it started with the prompt of saying, you know, I'd like help with ideas for a very short narrative animated film about Sherlock Holmes. I want it to be super weird and fast paced. And one of the things that I do with my film students is I have them make 3 short films right away. And the first film they make is 15 seconds long. And then the second film they make is 30 seconds long. And then the third film they make is 60 seconds long, because film is all about time. Like film is a time product made of pictures and sound. That's all it is. And narrative films are entirely they're products. Like if you're going to spend time with something, you're literally spending your time. So like the cheapest currency, you're dealing with here is someone's time, which again is harder than ever to get. So if you can't make a 90-second film that's interesting, you can't make a 30-second film that's interesting, you're never going to make scenes that are interesting. So anyway, I asked it to give me ideas. It gave me, a bunch of pitches. I gave it the note. What about a film where he gets poisoned? Because Purz told me about what we can't do on stream. So I was like, okay, I'll get rid of my sort of like R-rated idea. Let's make it PG or PG-13. So instead of him deliberately getting poisoned,
Quentin Tarantino's Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, yeah. Sherlock Pulp Fiction. But so I asked, like, let's have him get poisoned. And so he gave me, I say he, but, whatever. 405B gave me the synopsis and a quick rundown of it. I read through it and I was like, okay, like this could be interesting. It gave me themes and tone and stuff. So great. I said, give me a first draft. And it spit out a first draft. And I told it, I want a first draft for a 90-second film. So for those of you who haven't worked much with, I imagine everybody here has worked with like chatbots and stuff, but it helps to talk to it like it's your assistant, and for those of you who've never had an assistant, it's good practice for what it's like to have an assistant, because assistants never get it right on their first try. And God forbid you expect them to, you should expect to give an assistant instructions and then, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth until you get something that works, right? So I got my first draft of the script. I read through it. It has some cheesy stuff, but it also has all of like the tropes that I want it to have. It has all the elementary Dear Watson and has the hallucinations and and it broke it down into time, right? 40 seconds to 50 seconds, 50 seconds to 60 seconds. Great, fantastic. And it formatted everything basically. And I said, okay, let's revise it. But I wanted to make sure it has a clear beginning, middle, and an end. Because just like any first-year film student, it wrote a script that has no ending and sort of like the middle is like a whatever. So it rewrote it and gave me an actual structure with a beginning, middle, and end. And I read through it and I was like, okay, this is passable. And this is like 4 p.m. today when I'm doing this, right? So this is like a couple hours ago. And then it spit out a shot list without me asking, which like okay, fine. But I said, great. Let's make a detailed shot list for the film, detailing every shot with specifics, including camera angle, framing, movement, and subject, along with a specific duration for each shot. And there should be at least 30 to 40 shots. This is a 90-second film, right? But 30 to 40 shots lasting between 1 to 3 seconds. It's like, again, we're dealing with time as a product made of images and sound. Like, let's move. Let's make this pacey. So it gave me a shot list. I read through the shot list, and this is where, again, AI as an assistant, not as the solution, because it is really helpful. It gave me a shot list. It broke down its own script into shots with details that are helpful, wide angle, close up, content, whether there's movement or no movement, duration of each shot, right? So goes through this, I think 32 shots it gave me, relatively, clear and well broken down. Like, this is, if I got this from a student, I'd be like, great. Because again, like, this work is the most tedious, boring work involved in filmmaking, but it is the most important step. Like, you have to work through your film. And sitting down and breaking down a shot list, it can take you hours and hours and hours. And instead, now it can take you like an hour to work through it, because then you can get to the second and third and fourth and fifth idea. So I'm going to scroll. I don't want to scroll too quickly because it might just kind of blur through the screen, but whatever. So we got 32 shots to get to the end of the film. And I read through all these as they came through. This was great. And so I said, great. And I explained to the model what I want to do. I said, I'm going to create storyboards for this now using generative AI image synthesis. So let's take the shot list and create 32 image prompts for image generation to create detailed and consistent characters and locations, which is still kind of impossible without ControlNet, I know.
Yeah.
And keep each prompt to 70 tokens maximum. Let's make the clay style model stop motion for this prompt list too. So append claymation, clay model, stylistic style cinematic. And then I throw on like Cinestill, Fujifilm, 4K, 8K to every single prompt. So what's interesting is it messed it up right off the bat. So like right off the bat, it puts claymation first, right? So I told it to append it, and instead of putting it at the
prefixed
end,
it instead
like
of suffixed
it prefixed it. Yeah, exactly. So it's like, okay, like fine. And I went through and I was like, all right, let's do it again. Like, this is what, you have an assistant do, right? And if you're a professor, you'd probably have a student do it. Let's do it again. And because as we know, everybody here who's prompted before, we know that, the subject needs to come first. The way you structure a prompt is important in the sense of like the main content, the subject has
Yeah, the
to be
meat goes
first,
at the front.
and then the meat goes at the front, and then all of the sort of like additive stylistic stuff taxed on at the end. And one of the techniques I learned when I was not sleeping for a year, prompting stable diffusion all day, all night, was sometimes you can pack a prompt in such a way that you can sort of force cohesion from prompt to prompt. You can kind of give it enough additional sort of stylistic additives to kind of get some level of cohesion from image to image. It takes a bit of practice, like that's one of the big things is practice and practice. But it gave me a good set of like starter kits for prompts. It's like it's wide shot of Baker Street flat, Victorian era London townhouse, morning light, claymation, clay model style, cinematic, cinestill, Fujifilm, 4K, AK. Okay, cool, great. So I don't know if anyone notices this right off the bat, but this is a huge mistake in the first prompt. And I didn't notice this until I started prompting, which is great. Like I got within like a half an hour, I got to the place where I'm prompting images and I'm able to realize like the mistakes that I made as a director and that my assistant made because I didn't look closely enough. But it's fine. Like it's like we've lost no money and we've lost like almost no time to get to the point where I can start to storyboard the film.
Right.
And so,
you're not wasting another artist's time.
Yeah. But so here's the cool thing, right? This is the good thing about mistakes is mistakes get you to better ideas. And so the first prompt it gave me is wide shot of Baker Street flat. Okay, so I'm going to switch my screen to my script. So it's going to get really bright. I'll switch my screen to dark mode. Dark reader on. Great. Okay, so here is my script on Google Drive. And so I have my outline here and I can go to the sort of beginning of it. And I just kind of formatted everything, as quickly as I could.
Dr. Scott would like to know what the mistake is, Bill.
Well, I'm going to get to it. So,
he's rushing
the
ahead.
shot list. I love the eager students, but Dr. Scott.
I know, it's like relax, man. Jeez.
There's a reason you have a PhD, man. Okay, you're seeing right through me. So right off the bat, you can see in the script, fade in, interior, Baker Street, flat day. The room is cluttered with papers, books, and various scientific equipment.
Sherlock and the first shot was outside, Watson, right?
But the first shot in my shot list is the shot
exterior
that
Baker
me, right?
Street. Yeah.
It just said wide shot of Baker Street. So I went ahead and started generating, and they all came out as exteriors. And I was like, oh, I didn't even.
It doesn't understand you're inside the house. Yeah.
But even though it told me and it wrote the script, it's almost like a human writer, where it's like, I didn't know I wrote that, which is amazing, which is great. So what it gave me though was the realization that like, yeah, a good first shot would be the exterior, and it shouldn't be 3 seconds. It could just be 1.5, maybe 2 seconds. We see the exterior and then we cut to the interior.
Yeah.
And so I took that first prompt and I split it into like shot 1A and shot 1B. And so, right off the bat, the mistake led me to like a little bit of like creative fission,
Nice.
So
we love happy accidents here.
Yeah. And so I'll crack open the let's see, let me see, I'm gonna have to pull up the folder with the images. I downloaded a few of the images today. I didn't get to throw them in PureRef yet, but so we can see, so this was the first output that I got was the exterior, and I was like, that's a nice looking exterior. Like that looks like like a little kind of got that Wes Anderson-y kind of like 80s kind of claymation vibe to it.
And that's Flux. That's Flux Dev, right?
Yeah, this is Flux Dev. This is Flux 1 Dev with Clip L and the T5 models and just straight prompt. This was like the 2.0 guidance, I think.
Yeah.
And this is at 50 steps. I think I've dialed it back to 25 steps for the stream so it can go faster.
Right on.
But this was the first one. I was like, this is a nice one. I was like, well, what else does it give me? Okay, so like here's the second one. I was like, okay, this kind of looks like Philadelphia, but this also looks a little bit more like the street in the sense that like you're not seeing a standalone mansion. You're seeing like a like a row of
Townhouses, yeah.
houses. Yeah. But I couldn't resist. And this is like the pros and cons of Flux, is that Flux is so good that like one prompt is never enough. You know, it's like Pringles, you know, it's like you start prompting and you just can't stop. Um, so I tried another one and I was like, okay, like let's, you know, like, and it's the cars are parked on the sidewalk, so maybe not. And I'm also pushing it too because I'm asking for a 2K resolution. I'm asking for 2048 by, I think this is 512 maybe. I think this is 512 by 2048, maybe 2048 by 768. We'll find out in a second. Either way, um, kind of forcing the model into like an extreme aspect ratio, which again is like pretty awesome because it can handle it pretty well. You know,
Yeah, it's so good at
for the,
that.
Flux is just so good in general. Like it's just such an awesome model. I was up until 3 a.m. last night just prompting this thing, and like I'm an old man. 3 a.m. is late for me, you
I
know?
know, right? It's reactivating all the bad habits again for me too.
It feels like it's 2022, man. That's what it
Mhm.
feels like. But it's 2024 and I'm older now. Um okay, so I got a bunch of, and then I was like, okay, that's my first shot. Let's try a bunch of interiors. And so I've got a bunch of interiors for us to sort of kind of pick and choose from.
Right on.
And I think like accepting the fact that like we're not going to get perfect consistency. Um, but there are a million ways for us to go about this because we're not just asking the AI to do everything for us. You know, like we could animate characters on a green screen, you know, like we could take the live portrait stuff, animate the same homes in every shot to get the consistency if we wanted to, and then just drop it in, composite it in After Effects, you know. Um, it doesn't have to be something where the AI does everything, you know, God
Hmm.
forbid. Now this gave me like young Sherlock, which I thought was a little weird. I didn't like that. This one was a little bit crazy eyed. This one, I tried to add in the teacup, you know, and so it's just the process of like, okay, let's get the teacups. And then I realized I had to add in more and more details. So I went from like a prompt with 20 tokens to a prompt with about 70 tokens. Um,
Nice.
and I just kept trying to force it. And then it started getting more like stylistic in a way. I was like, okay, like I could touch up the face a little bit. Like this is
Hmm.
kind of like, but Watson having the same hat as Sherlock is a little bit too similar. Um, Is the audio okay? I just saw someone said
It's my
we
mic.
don't hear you.
I think it's okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it
Okay.
was my mic for a sec.
Okay. Yeah. So let me see. I think I had a couple that I liked. So we got to like this one where Sherlock's got two cups of tea. Um but it's a little bit closer. And so basically like, and this is basically where I ran out of time, before the stream, but like that's what the stream is for. Like this is called creative exploration, folks. It's not creative destination, right?
Hmm.
Like we're we're on a journey here.
Damn right.
Uh so it got a little realistic, and then I think this kind of got closest to what I was looking for, was like, give or take this one sort of. And I might like fiddle with it a little bit more and try to get to something. Yeah, but it's hard to like, you know, it's hard to prompt when you have a sort of, uh, OCD, and you get great joy from prompting because it's like
Yeah,
you never want to stop.
I know. The
It's like,
start going down the permutation highways, and you're
yeah.
just like,
Um,
yeah.
but so I got the first two shots. I got our exterior shot, which we could probably add a little bit of camera movement to, and then I'll pick one of these interiors, and then I recorded myself doing every line. So the script is silly as hell. Like I'm just gonna like, like what do the kids say these days? No cap, no cap. The script is silly.
Just a very modicum
So
amount of cap. Yeah, just a modicum
there's
of
a
cap.
tiny bit of cap,
Yeah,
folks.
just
Um,
not much.
so I recorded all these lines. I recorded myself doing Sherlock in my worst possible British dialect, and then I did Watson in a similarly bad dialect, and I just went take after take. I went back and forth, line by line. I did a couple multiple takes for a few of the lines that I just chewed up weirdly, and then sent them over to Purz. So I just like did 50 takes and sent them over. And so yeah, so all together, like this is maybe like 2 hour. We're like 2 hours into the process. with like a week of thinking about this. I spent like a week thinking about the idea, and it's like my homework. My homework was due today. I think I got my homework in, and my homework is a script, a first draft, shot list, and a couple of storyboards. And now this is our class time. We'll work together, and folks in the chat can give us suggestions or advice, or I don't know, whatever they want to give us. So yeah. So where do you want to start, Purz? Like, so you've got the clips, you've got the videos. I guess I got to give you some stuff to animate with, right?
Yeah, I got your folder of stuff. So I got all of your performances. So let's have a look at that folder. So these are all just dated, it looks like.
Right. They go in order. If you sort them by date created, or you sort them by name, which is the date and time created, it'll go line by line in the script.
Okay.
I didn't have time to like rename stuff, but basically it's like, every time there's a cut, it's either a second take of the first line or the next line. And it's over and over like that.
So let's jump over to my screen, I guess, real quick, and we'll start setting up LivePortrait, and then you can start sending me like puppets, and we'll start animating them, and we'll see what it looks like.
Cool.
So send me the first, whatever corresponds with the first scene here.
Yeah.
And I will switch over to thingy. Why not use text to speech? We aren't using text to speech because we're going. Bill actually recorded his face when he performed all these lines, and we're going to use LivePortrait to puppet all of these animations with his animations. So I'll show you guys what those look like in just one sec here. Let me open up my. Hopefully, is that one? Yep, that's one. Come on up. And boop. Oh, I got rid of Bill.
Cool. And I'm going to make another folder that I'll send to you in just a second. I'll just put the images into that folder.
Cool.
Or I could shoot them to you on Discord, like whatever is fastest for you.
Discord's probably better.
Okay, we'll do Discord.
And let's load up the example workflow for LivePortrait. Browse. Comfy. Because we're going from image, so we're going to use the single image one. Custom nodes. It's been a while. Bear with me. LivePortrait examples. We want image examples. So we're going to pull up the basic image example workflow. So this comes with LivePortrait. So just install LivePortrait. You can go up to Manager, Custom Nodes Manager, LivePortrait. It's just this node here by KJ Nodes, LivePortrait KJ. Install that, restart, and load up the example file in the folder, and you're off to the races. As it starts out, it loads 128 frames from your animation. So if you don't want it to do that, if you want to load the whole animation, unplug that, turn this back into a widget, this sort of input thing, and then change your frame load cap to 0, and that's gonna load the whole input video instead of only the first 128 frames. They do that so that you can save time when you're doing tests. So let's load up the first video. Go through all this absolute nonsense. Okay, today, no, we want to group by none, and we want to sort by name. So our first video here.
Watson, I've cracked the code.
Nice. You're talking. So, first things first, guys, when you use LivePortrait, take the audio out of your mask, the thing you're working from, and plug it into the output so that it's synced up when you're done, because otherwise you got to go cut all that stuff together later in a video editor, and you'll hate it. And then, so yeah, what did you send me an image on? Let's check.
Yeah, I sent you shot one. Yeah.
Oh no, I need people. I need people.
Yep.
I need people.
Yep. So I'll give you one of the, I don't love any of the people so far, but I'm just going to give you one of them that's the least worst.
The least worst one.
I think so. Yeah.
So
Because
like for these,
I would
because we're not using
I like these
runway,
guys.
we can't really do image to video in an effective way that's going to look like your input images. So for exterior shots and stuff like that, we might just just do a what do you call it? Ken Burns effect thing, you know, on the actual image, because like
Right.
yeah.
And we could throw like the exterior shot into runway just for that slow push. You know, we could do that kind of thing since like it's great at slow pushes, basically.
All right. So then we get a puppet.
I'm gonna take this guy. I think this was my favorite. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so for the rest of this, we're going to use the media pipe because it's the fastest. Here you can choose which face cropper you want to use. Insight face works really well, but it's commercially unavailable for use. So if you're doing commercial work, don't use this. If you're just having fun, use it all day. It's fine. You're the slowest person I've ever met. Send me the image, sir.
Oh, I'm in Photoshop trying to clean up the picture.
Sir,
Sorry.
sir.
Okay. Here's shot 1B. I don't want Professor Scott to fail me.
He
so
won't. It's fine.
Okay, so I just sent you a 2-shot, so it's going to be interesting.
If you don't send me the picture, I'll use a Teletubby, and then every shot will be a Teletubby.
All right, we'll try that one first. Let's see if it works, because it's a 2-shot.
Oh, no. Oh, no. There we go. Okay, so we got 2 people in this shot. So in LivePortrait, all you have to do is, you see this face index in the LivePortrait cropper? 0 is the first face, and 1 is the second face, 2 is the third face. So we're going to just do 0 and see who it is. You never really know who it's going to be until it does the run. So it's probably going to be the guy on the left. And what you want to be the guy on the right, right?
Sherlock is the guy on the left. Sherlock's got the hat. So I'm
going to try to get performance. Sherlock the hat. Okay, so let's try 0 and see if that's the one on the left.
I just jump back and forth between the two like a crazy person.
Oh, so this will be fun. Okay. So one thing we're going to do is we're going to match the output frame rate to the input frame rate of this video. So we're going to do that by, if we just make this node a little bigger. I don't know why it's doing this, but there's another output on here that's hidden, and it's called video info. And we're going to add a VHS video info node. And it's a big, long node that exposes a whole bunch of information about the video, but all we really want is the source frame rate, because we're going to plug that into the output video. So replace the frame rate with an input and just plug in the source frame rate into here. So that way our audio is going to line up with our final render. And you can just minimize the video info link once you've done that, because you don't actually really need to ever use it again. It's only to pass the frame rate to the final. And so I think all these settings are okay. Pretty much everything right out of the gate works. The only thing I'm going to do is expose the key points so that we can see what face it's doing at a glance here. So video combined. So to do that, I'm pulling out from the crop info on the LivePortrait cropper. I'm adding a LivePortrait key points to image node. Then I'm sending that out to a video combine. And that's just going to show me, actually, I'm also going to grab the frame rate from the thing, because why not? We have it, we'll use it. Let's grab that frame rate and plug it in up here. And we're going to set this to MP4, 13 CRF, turn the save output off, because this is just a preview. We don't care. We don't need to keep it. So this is going to show us what the face mapping looks like by having this little preview here, which is very handy. So let's run it and see what I broke. Now, what might happen is I might run out of RAM, because Bill might have sent me a very large image here. We'll see a video here, because Comfy does not like big videos at all. Sort of the way it works is it dumps everything into your GPU. So it's not the way like a video editor works. It's because it's an automation tool. It's kind of like, yeah, it just jams everything into memory and just hopes you can handle it. Comfy should have a way to set global variables such as frame rate. Yes, there is a way. You just create primitive integers and floats and strings and stuff, and you can control stuff like that. It's very easy. Okay. Oh, the video worked. Looks like you sent me a pretty reasonably sized video. No, you didn't. You sent me a giant video. Okay, we are going to do a little bit of choppy woppy here because this is too big. Image scale. And we're going to plug this in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to crop center because Bill's face is perfectly centered pretty much. I'm just going to crop center at 1024 by 1024. And that's going to give us just a little bit less input. Like the sides. It's going to cut the sides off. VRAM usage. Oh, no face detected in the first source image. No face, Bill.
What?
Doesn't see a single face here, buddy.
What?
Yeah, no face. Just let me try something first. 1080. Still don't think it sees a face.